Welcome to the Filipino American Women Project, a podcast show that shares stories and life lessons told by individuals living or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent and identify as female. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a fellow Filipino American woman, and I'm excited for you to join us. Let's get started. All right. Hi, everyone. Jen Amos here with the Filipino American Women Project podcast show. And as always, I have the lovely co-host with me, Nani Dominguez. Nani, welcome back to the show.
Hey.
And we are stoked. And I feel like I always repeat myself when I say this, but honestly, I don't think it devalues every time I say it, because every time we have a show like this, it means that we have another incredible woman that we're going to be interviewing today. So let me tell you a little bit about Chef Kathy Hardy. Kathy Hardy was born and raised in Manila, Philippines. When she's not cooking, she enjoys spending time with her husband and their adorable baby girl. She also enjoys being outdoors, such as urban hiking, snowboarding, cooking, and reading. During her downtime, she spends her time traveling in the Philippines, where she donates portions of her sales from the catering and food truck to feed the Beninsuran Elementary School in Camigan Island, Philippines. A Taste of the Philippines was the first Filipino mobile restaurant in Colorado, owned and operated by Kathy. Her vision for the food cart was to introduce the Filipino culture through Filipino cuisine. Since opening, the food cart had caught eye of 5280 magazine, Zagat Denver, and the Asian Avenue magazine, in which she was named Best of Filipino Food in 2015. A Taste of Philippines moved their headquarters to Chicago, Illinois, spring of 2018, where they serve at various farmers markets throughout Chicago and are also available for catering. Chef Kathy, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yes, it's our absolute pleasure. Why don't we start with you sharing, how did you hear about the project? And more importantly, what inspired you to jump on and share your story?
Sure. Actually, I think Nani had reached out to me because my friend Rhea, you guys had interviewed. She's been like a Instagram friend since last year sometime. So we just kind of clicked. And then I think you guys had just previously interviewed her, and I think my name got passed around there. And of course, I jumped at the opportunity because as a Filipino American woman, of course, I had to just share my story and hopefully, inspire other Filipino women or just women in general to be out there. So here I am. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, well, we are so happy to have you. I want to give a shout out to Rhea Predikin. For everyone who wants to know who Rhea Predikin was, or is, not was, she's still alive.
It's number 6, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Number 6, Nani would remember because that was the first show that she was on with us.
Yes, gotcha. It was a special episode.
Yes, nice. It was super, super special. Yeah, that was like so many episodes. That was like 10 plus episodes ago now.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Nice.
Yeah, it's so crazy, like how we started this podcast show in June, and we already have, I think we're nearing 20 plus episodes, and I still have like another 5 to edit. So
oh, wow.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Rhea Predikin. That's episode 6, What's the Skin That I'm In? And to this date, she still has one of the highest plays for her episode. So shout out to you, Rhea, and sharing your story and connecting with us through Instagram and everything. She seems like a great person to know in person.
Oh, for sure. She's just like beautiful. Like if you see her, I'm just like, wow, she's amazing. And also we're actually working together next month on October 20th. We're going to be at Bubbles Academy. We're working together for the Filipino, History Month. So we're doing like a cultural, so I'm like catering their event. And then there's going to be like a little mini Filipino museum. There's like arts and crafts for the kiddos. So I'll link it all later and tag you guys in it.
Yes. Yeah. Speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to our listeners who tag us on Instagram. So I never actually promoted this, but every time you tag us about anything you're working on, whether it's art, an upcoming event, or getting a book published, please tag us because I like to share it, or we like to share it. Nani is actually, I'm actually about to talk to her later about helping me manage the Instagram account because we've been getting a lot of notifications lately from all of you. And so if there's anything you want us to support, that's all about moving forward the Filipino American community and especially Filipino American women, like please tag us on Instagram. Our IG handle is what is it? The Filipino American Woman with an A, not with an A at the end, not an E. So it's singular, not plural. And if you tag us, we're more than happy to share that little hint there for anyone that is looking to promote something and wants some exposure. We do that at no cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's a little hint that I've actually never publicly shared, but people kept tagging us. I was like, I'm just going to share it anyway. So, and now I'm officially announcing it to people who have upcoming events that want the exposure for that. Well, anyway, I digress. So this project, just so you know, it's focused on Filipino American women. And if anyone is curious to know how we identify Filipino American women, we focus on individuals who live or have lived in America that are of Filipino descent, whether it's a quarter, a half, or full, and identify as female. And so, Kathy, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your family background and why you identify as a Filipino American woman.
Oh, for sure. So I'm full on 100% Filipino. I'm born and raised in Manila. Both my parents are Filipino. My dad is from the Visayan region and my mom is from Manila. So she's the mestiza of the one, but I got my color from my dad's side. I'm darker. So there's 4 of us girls. And myself and my youngest sister are like the darker one, but I'm the darkest one of all of them. But so in 1992, my dad moved the whole family to America, Springfield, Illinois. Side note, which I'm like, Dad, really? You can move anywhere in the U.S., but Springfield, Illinois. Well, anyway, going back. So yeah, I identify as that. So in, I think 2005, I became an American citizen. But as of, I want to say 5 years ago, I am a dual citizen. So I am both Filipino. So I have my citizen there. I can vote in the Philippines and also here in America too. So
wow.
Yeah.
I am of American citizenship and I always have been, but I've always been very curious about doing dual citizenship. How does that look like? Like, what does the process look like to do that?
Well, I got very lucky. I was very connected in Denver. So when I decided to become a dual citizenship, to do my citizenship, the phone number that was online, I forget what the website was, but I just happened to dial the number and it's someone I knew, Miss Donna Levine, and she was like the head person there. And I was like, oh my God, Auntie Donna, is that you? She's like, what are you doing, Kathy? I'm like, I got this phone number online to see how I can become a dual citizen. So it just so happened that the San Francisco Filipino consulate was going to be in Denver, I think within less than 2 weeks after I had contacted her. So I'm like, I have a very busy schedule. I'm not asking for special treatment, but is there any way I can get in there, without an appointment? And she's like, she put my name right on top. So I was able to get sworn in and out within less than an hour, which was amazing. So yeah, so I got very, very lucky. But I think right now in Denver, I don't think you can do that anymore because the Filipino consulate in San Francisco is not doing that anymore. So I would suggest, calling our local. And in Chicago, we have a embassy here on right on Michigan Avenue. So you can certainly do that there in San Francisco. And I forget where the other part was aside from those two, but those are the main two where you can apply for dual citizenship. So
you definitely weren't kidding about getting the hookup, knowing someone in the system.
I know. I was like, why is Auntie Dawn? I actually hung up a couple times thinking I misdialed, and I'm like, okay, I just let it ring. And she's like, Kati, ikaw yan? Who are you? I'm like, oh, it's me. So. And then I'm actually on the application. I don't remember all of it, but I think you have to have some kind of ties in the Philippines. Either I think your parents or if you had to be born there or something like that. But I think you can marry someone there or something, but you have to have some kind of rooted ties out there in the Philippines in order
Yeah.
to be a dual citizenship. So
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, Chef Kathy, for people who don't know you, I mean, you have a big following on Instagram, so I feel like a lot of people know you. But for people that are getting to know you for the first time, we'd love for you to share a snapshot of your life, particularly what keeps you busy and most excited about life nowadays.
Oh, for sure. So, I mean, nothing's really changed in the past. So I've been kind of background. I've been in this industry for almost 8 years now. I was formerly an accountant, but now
Mhm.
pretty much my life consists of wrapping lumpias. For those of you that don't know what
Nice.
lumpias are, they're hand-rolled egg rolls. So they're our version of, they're Filipino egg rolls. So
Mhm.
pretty much that's how I spend my days, wrapping lumpias, delivering them. So while I was pregnant earlier this year, late last year, I would do deliveries every Friday because I couldn't really work anymore. So I could just drive. So I was kind of like quote unquote drug dealing lumpias. And then now that I have a 6-month-old baby, like my life literally consists of working around her and the naming schedule, wrapping lumpias, answering emails about work and just like stuff like that, and then also balancing all of that with a marriage as well and having a life, because you have to these days or else you just go insane and get burnt out and stuff. And I think that's how I've been able to like actually say I love what I do for a living, because I have
Mhm.
that perfect life and work balance, even though I would say it's like 75% work, but I love this, I wouldn't have it any other
Yeah, and I
way.
think balance looks different for everyone. Sometimes people feel like
Exactly.
they need to work more so that it like justifies when they relax. Or some people
Exactly.
prefer to like have a more laid back life and then just work enough to sustain that laid back life. So I think that's really awesome. I'm curious to know, why did you decide to take that leap from being an accountant to running a food truck and catering? Because to me, accounting sounds like a very stable job. And then doing a food truck is I'm sure a whole different experience of employment.
Oh, for sure. Yes. Well, like my dad has always been the businessman of the family. So I guess it kind of dates back to like when I was in sixth, seventh grade, where I knew I was kind of destined to be like, okay, I want to work in office buildings and stuff like that. So went to school for business management, and I'm like honestly a semester away from getting my bachelor's in accounting, but
Wow.
it was either that or doing the food truck and starting the business and everything. But I think the transition really clicked on me like in Denver. It was like right before the food truck scene actually blew up. It was like
Mhm.
2011. I was like, man, what else can I do? Like I love my job at St. Jelly. Was like, it's a oil field service company. So I was working as one of the accountants there. And then the oil field service or the oil and gas business in general is just kind of up and down, layoffs, you get hired back and everything. And then on top of that, not to like bash anyone or anything, but my supervisor just kind of made my life difficult. I don't know
Mm.
what it was, but it was, I believe it was like personal. But anyway, the way I was let go, I think was just like a big sign for me to
Mm.
start doing my own thing. So in theory, I think that was kind of a blessing. And that sounds so cliche, but for me, it actually, I felt it because the day I was kind of let go from my job, from being 8 to 9 months prior, I would come home just stressed out, and this job I loved, and she just made it really difficult for me. So like the day I was let go, I literally, I'm not kidding, I felt like a weight lifted off my shoulder. And
Oh.
after that, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I went on a few more job interviews, and then I got hired. And a few days later, after thinking about it over the weekend, and I'm just like, I said, thank you so much for the opportunity, but no thanks. And then that's when the idea of A Taste of the Philippines was born. So I just happened to have like, at the time I had a different significant other who was very supportive of my venture. And he just said, hey, go for it. We can do this. And then, yeah, so I just feel like everything kind of fell on my lap, as in like the financial part of it and the timing. Like I said, it was right before the food truck scene blew up, really. You know, so I opened the food truck, quote unquote, food truck doors in April of 2012. And then by July, it was kind of like, hey, this whole food truck thing is gonna blow up, and everyone just open up. So I was kind of like part of the OG crew in Denver, you know what I mean? There was like a couple of food trucks, maybe like a handful of food trucks that had opened maybe 2 years prior to me. And then I was like the second tier OG of the food trucks out there. And then just kind of, it's just a cool scene to be part of. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity, for everything. So.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I remember when I was in San Diego, I had friends that were like big foodies, and they would actively follow this food truck's Twitter account just to see where they were serving next. And then when they found out, when they would announce, like they would just go out of their way and drive to wherever they were at and then buy their food. And it was kind of like this like Easter egg hunt, I think, that made it fun for them and everything. So
yeah. Definitely. And then especially kind of tying in the whole Filipino part of this, I really thought I was one of the only few Filipinos in Denver. So within that first month, I met so many Filipinos in Denver, like that came out of the woodwork. Like, hey, you know, like shout out to my friend Jeanette. She goes by Mary, but she was one of the writers at Asian Avenue magazine. So she had stopped by there and we instantly became friends. I started going to her Toastmasters gigs and everything and just kind of kept in touch. And she was kind of like she kind of pretty much took my hand and said, hey, this is the Asian community. Because like I said, I thought I was the only Filipino person in Denver, you know, and then a month or two later, another Filipino fusion truck opened. So I feel like I kind of paved the way to the whole Filipino fusion. Even though I do like authentic Filipino food, but all these other Filipino people like started kind of like, hey, we can do this. I don't look at it as like, yes, they're competition and everything, but at the same time, what's one or two or three to Denver metro area that's going to be serving all that people. So even here in Chicago, it's the same thing. So I think it's very cool to be part of this community.
All right, Jen Amos here, jumping into the middle of our show, as I always do, to remind you why this show is possible. So, you know, at the end of every episode, I tend to say, if you didn't catch our guest contact info, don't worry, we'll have those in the show notes. Check them out. I worked so hard on them. You're welcome. Well, it's been brought to my attention that our show notes are not as easy to find as I thought, which is why starting summer 2020, the Filipino American Women Project is proud to be partnering with Captivate, the world's only growth-oriented podcast host. Captivate is created for independent podcasters, designed from day one to help you to focus on audience growth and the expansion of your audio influence. One way that Captivate makes our lives easier as independent podcasters is by taking the guesswork out of making a website for your show. That's right, a website for your show. So listeners, starting summer 2020, finding our show notes will be so much easier. All thanks to Captivate. You're welcome, as always. If you're about to start podcasting or are getting burnt out from all the extra work of producing one, like building a website, consider a 7-day free trial, that's right, free, with Captivate by visiting thefilamwoman.com. That's the Filam, short for Filipino American woman.com. Or, check out our show notes in the meantime, which is in the details section of each episode. Once again, you can visit thefilamwoman.com or visit the details section of this episode. Yeah, and I think in general, when it comes to competition, I think it's very small-minded sometimes when you think of being competitive, because it kind of comes, I think competition sometimes comes from a scarcity mindset. But when you realize like there are plenty of people who are hungry often. Like
Exactly.
you're going to be just fine and your truck
Yeah.
can't be everywhere. So I think it's so awesome that you like paved the way and inspired other people and show them that they too could do it. Because in
Exactly.
any way, we need more exposure for the Filipino culture and the Filipino cuisine anyway.
Exactly. And everyone's been saying, I've read so many times, oh, in 2014, it's going to be Filipinos the next new thing. And it's like 5 years later, it's still on the cusp. I think we're right there, like almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even with Tom, I can't pronounce his last name, Tom McCananan or something. He just won the James Beard Award a few
Oh,
months ago here in
wow.
Chicago, and he's the chef, and I want to say, don't quote me on it, he's the chef and also I think the owner of Bad Saints, and I think it's in Washington D.C. somewhere, but like I said, don't quote me on that. But like that's a bigger platform, and you got Nicole from the owner of Jeepney in New York, like Maharlika, she owns both of them. So it's
wow.
like I feel like we're here, we just need to get to that next level of like the Chinese food, Thai food, Japanese food, you know what I mean? We're still on the cusp, but I think we're right there. And I'm happy to be part of that too, and be like, hey, I've been doing this since 2012, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very cool. Very cool.
I mean, I heard somewhere, and someone feel free to like DM me later with stats on this, but we're like the number one most, what do you call it? We have the highest population being Filipino American compared to all the other Asian American groups here in America. And I think the reason why we don't get a lot of recognition is because we're just very humble people. You focus on like getting to
Indeed.
work and serving, and to talk about ourselves is like a whole like, oh, you want me to talk about myself and like what I do? Like I'm just here to provide for my family. So I think like and that's part of what this podcast is trying to do, is just to raise more of our voices and let people know like you have a story. Like obviously you're probably proud of what you're doing, but also we want you to share it, because we need more of those stories to normalize like these types of conversations and let people know like, hey, we're out there, and like we cover a diverse amount of careers, and you could do it too. You don't have to do like
Yeah.
maybe just a stable job, although that is still very commendable. I could never hold a stable job. I commend anyone who could do it. But just to know like what your options are. And yeah, I just think it's super cool how, first of all, you got into the food industry and then you got into the food truck industry like early on. I can only imagine what it was like to even consider a food truck as opposed to a restaurant. Like, was that like a calculated decision to do that?
Oh, for sure, hands down, because your overhead is much lower, startup costs much, much, much lower, and it's just a smaller risk.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think I'm adventurous and like to take risks, but at the same time, I want to be smart with my money, especially with my money, because I work hard for it. So, like, my seed money on this was very, very small,
Mm-hmm.
and I got the return back less than a year, or no, in my first year, so which was awesome. Like my profit margin at the time, or even now too, it's like it's very high. I think when you have goals to be like, hey, my end game is to, let's say, open up a restaurant, which is in my radar right now.
Mm-hmm.
But like you kind of want to baby step, just kind of like moving from Denver to Chicago for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
very like, okay, it's calculated move. There's definitely a need, and like people want something like this in Chicago. So I'm like, okay, how do I start this? But transferring from my food truck from Denver to Chicago was a little bit challenging. So I'm like, okay, what can I do to transition my business? So I started looking at farmers markets, and I'm like, wow, there's like a need for this. So that's where like I start off. So it's like, yes, it's a bold move, big change, but the transition for me was very smooth because I already had the base. And I think it helped too, like my appearances in Food Network and everything kind of like gave me that, hey, is
Yeah.
Chicago such a big city, like food city, that kind of gave me street credit that people can take notice here in
Cool.
Chicago and be like, okay, she's just like nobody. And hey, she's been on Food Network, maybe we'll give her a try or something. It just so happened it clicked last year. People love the lupias. I mean, obviously we made some mistakes here and there, but going from a food truck to a farmer's market vendor, and
Yeah.
you make some mistakes and stuff, but you know what? You bounce back. and you take notes and you try to make it better each time. So I think it's my second year in Chicago. I've tightened up the loose screws a little bit, and I notice it in sales, and every single week I see the same people, which is amazing. So it's like that big risk that I took last year, well, to me, it paid off, and it's well worth it to me. You know, I miss my people in Denver and everything. I keep touch with a lot of them, but I think Chicago for me has just been like, you guys have embraced it so much here. And, you know, I'm happy like to be here and everything. So
yeah, no, that's super awesome.
Just wanted to say that I think what you're doing is really cool, really great. Before we got on this call, I was on your Instagram earlier, just kind of like drooling, looking at all the pictures because the food looks so good. So I can see, even though I haven't tasted, I can see what all the hype is about at least. And yeah, I think that there's really no better way to build community with Filipinos other than around food. So I think that you've really kind of like found your niche here and hit the lottery in that sense, because you'll always have mouths to feed.
Exactly. Thank you.
If you're associated with this community. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So,
yeah. And then what's cool is like, it's not just Filipino coming by. It's all types of people, which is to me, it's like, it's very cool to see. And, you know, like I said, seeing the same people.
To a little part of our culture.
Exactly. Yeah. And then honestly, it's very cool here because like the transition, like I said, was very smooth, but at the time, like I wasn't really into Instagram and everything, but being in Chicago, seriously, when I moved, I only had maybe less than 1,500 followers. And then you guys like to tag. You guys like here in Chicago, people like to tag, post videos and their posts and everything. So my followers kind of went up by that, like almost 3,000 followers in the last year, just from people like sharing the stuff, which has been amazing.
Yeah, you didn't even have to really put any work in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and being, I think, in the loop, you're like right in the middle of the city. People like smell, because we fry the lumpias on the spot. Like I roll them, I freeze them, so when people come by, they smell the promotion. You know, they're like, oh wait, where's that coming from? Yeah. So it's kind of like, oh, where's that? So,
you need to bring your cart to the Bay Area, because we have the food truck thing is really, really big here, but there's only like one or two Filipino trucks, and they're really good, but it would be nice to have some variety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like I have to make a confession. Like whenever like when I used to live in San Diego, in National City, that area was very known for like Filipino restaurants and stuff. And I would never go to them, not because I didn't like them or anything. It was like, to me, it just, and my friend, you know, my non-Filipino friends, for example, they would want to go, and even like in the Filipino community would go. But to me, it didn't make sense for me to go to the restaurants, because I could just go home to my mom and she'd cook it for me.
Like hers better, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
And
Your
so
mom's always better.
yeah, exactly. I was like, why would I have to pay for something that my mom can just cook for me?
Exactly. And honestly, that's how I feel most of the time. But I actually ventured out a little over a month ago. I know I make my own lumpias. I like my lumpias and stuff, but I went and ate at a Filipino restaurant. I think that's the first time I ate at a Filipino restaurant ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So obviously it's natural, you know, you're gonna do it. You're gonna compare yours or your mom's or theirs and your aunts and grandma Lola's and stuff like that. And then I took notes and be like, okay, this is what I liked about this. This is what I like about mine. You compare. To me, I compare, but I never been like, oh, they're soft or something. It's just like, hey, it just so happened I like this sauce better than that sauce, or my taste better than, you know what I mean? But and honestly, if you're from the Philippines, and whoever cooks for you, like either your Lola, your nanay, grandpa, whoever, tito, tita, whatever, everyone's going to have their different version. Kind of like my mom's version of adobo is different from
Yeah.
my lolas and my titas. So even now, I cook it the way my mom makes it, and it's not the mainstream way of cooking adobo. Mine's saucier. It looks like, when you first glance at it, it looks like gravy sauce, but it has the exact same ingredients of a quote unquote traditional adobo, but the taste is there, but it just doesn't look the same. You know what I mean? So it's like, sometimes I feel like I need to like explain myself and be like, hey, this is how my mom made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, like going back to the subject, it's like people have their own ways of doing things. So.
Yeah. And here in, just like how you felt over there with wondering like people in Denver, if there were Filipinos in Denver, like right now, I kind of feel that way about Virginia Beach. I've been told that there's Filipinos around here, but I haven't run into any yet. So I was thinking like, now that we're having this conversation, I was thinking like, maybe I should like see if there's any Filipino restaurants out here. Yeah. So if any of our listeners happen to be in the neighborhood, like live in my neighborhood, let me know. And maybe we can like meet up at a local restaurant that's a Filipino restaurant and support them and what have you. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I feel like the best way to like figure out if there's Filipinos in the area is offer Filipino food.
Exactly. Hey, why don't you open up your own truck? I'm just kidding.
Oh,
and
man.
See how many people will stop. You know what I mean? You never know.
Man. Oh,
I'm
man.
just joking.
Jen's over there eating like broccoli and eggs.
See, well, see that's the other thing, Kathy, is like, I mean, right now I'm kind of like on I say kind of because I'm a little lax about it, but I'm like on a strict, like high protein, high fats and veggies like diet and low carb diet. And I'm just curious if you have any advice for someone who I'm Americanized. My mom is an immigrant from the Philippines. So if I were to make a Filipino cuisine, how could I make it how do I make it low carb? Do you have any advice on that?
You can't, but I actually believe it. I'm a very bad.
I love that answer.
I'm a very bad Asian because I don't eat that much rice. But,
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, you can substitute the rice. You can make cauliflower rice instead
that's
of
true.
Cauliflower rice
and coconut aminos instead of
for sure. That's a great idea. But or
you can make it healthy. You can make it work.
Yeah. Or like if you want, do brown rice. So sometimes I'll do that. Like I'll get in my kick of like, oh, I want to eat rice, but I don't want white rice. So I just kind of mix brown rice with quinoa and add chia seeds in it and flax seeds and add like a little bit of like a fiber boost in it. So I don't feel that bad. And then if I hardly cook Filipino food for myself and my husband, except for lumpias and the empanadas. But when I do, I substitute the kikoman to like a low sodium one. So I'm kind of mindful of what I eat. So I try to eat as healthy as possible. Of course, like I love ice cream and stuff like that, pizzas and stuff like that. But but you got to splurge once in a while. But if you're gonna cook Filipino food, there's definitely ways to substitute them. But ultimately, we like our pork, we like our chicken, we like our beef, and there's no such thing as like vegetarian stuff. So like kind of like a side note, like I feel like Denver, Colorado in general is known for their outdoorsy and the other thing is like the quote unquote granola lifestyle. So it's kind of like they're more self-conscious of what they eat and everything. So that was a little bit of a challenge. So I kind of like studied up on that, made some stuff gluten-free, vegetarian, substituting pork, like let's say ground pork on lumpias with tofu or something like that, making it a little bit healthier, but not stay away from the flavors of Filipino cuisine. So.
Yeah, I feel like if I ever do a food truck, I want to call it like LC Filipino Food, and LC is short for low carb Filipino food, and see what comes of it. Like, see, how they have like the Asian fusions and stuff. I was like, no, I'm going to do like a low carb Filipino food.
Yeah, and market it that way. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd be curious to see the response.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be surprised if I like offended people for that. You're like, what are you doing? You're butchering our Filipino cuisine.
Yeah, I mean, part of me would want to try it.
Oh, for sure. Like, I definitely got some raised eyebrows from Filipino, like the older generation Filipinos. Sometimes, like,
yeah, who are like,
you
what
know,
are you doing?
be like, what are you doing? And it was like, I swear it's good. It's just, low sodium, low this,
like,
whatever.
just try
but
it.
It's good, I promise.
Yeah. Just take a
It's
bite.
Yeah, it's like I'm trying to
Exactly.
extend your life and prevent diabetes here. Like low
Exactly.
sodium, doing you a favor. Yeah, it's just so funny like how a lot of Filipino cuisine is like, yeah, like high in sodium, fried, just a lot of things, a lot of unhealthy things in my opinion at least. So I usually just try to, I don't know. I just, yeah, for one, I don't live near my mom anymore, so I don't really have like Filipino cuisine, and even if I wanted to, I haven't actively like looked out for it yet, but this episode is inspiring me too. So thank you, ladies.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We are now at my one of my most favorite parts of the interview, which is really talking about life lessons and stories that led to those life lessons. For anyone that's listening for the first time, the reason why we do this is because we want to collect about 365 life lessons and stories told by Filipino American women, so that one day we can publish a book that we can share to our community, hopefully tour at colleges where it's dense with Filipino student organizations, and really just, normalize our stories as Filipino American women. So with that said, Kathy, you had mentioned the life lesson you want to share today is to try anything that scares you. Can you elaborate on that and then share a story that led you to that life lesson?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I guess I don't really have like a story per se, but I just feel like in anything in life, for
Mm-hmm.
me, the biggest one would probably like the transition part of being an accountant and like doing the unknown. Like Richard Bronson actually sums it up real quick. It's like pretty much saying like just go for it and then figure it out. Say yes and then just figure it out. And I feel like I live by that. And it's a scary feeling, like moving to a new city or like starting a new job, regardless if if you're starting a new job or starting in your own venture or anything. Because I think the saddest thing is like knowing you could have done something but not do it because you're scared of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it goes with life, your relationships, your career, you're just risking a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. That's scary. And then I think anyone who's scared to do something and they do it would feel like that accomplishment of going, hey, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but here I am, I did it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like that feeling of like accomplishment and you achieve something. You're like, yes, I did it. It's just, to me, it's very satisfying. So, and I think that's why, again, I thank you ladies for having me, because I feel like I have this platform on Instagram, or when an episode on Farm Food Network or something comes on and I get that email, it's like, hey, you just inspired me to do something like this. Thank you so much. To me, that's very rewarding. So, yeah. Even though it's scary, you do it and you're like, yeah, made the right decision.
I can't say that I'm like scared to do these shows anymore. I mean, back then we used to do Facebook Live, so it was a little scarier because we're all like on
Yeah.
camera. But even if I was scared, I always think about what the results were in the past. Like every time I took a chance, like what was the result? And it was usually something positive and fulfilling and satisfying, gratifying, like everything. And part of why like I love doing the show and is that there's a lot of people that we interview that have decided to be courageous enough to share their story. And then we have the listeners who reach out to us and direct message us or email us and just share how much the show has impacted them. And to me, I feel like that kind of applies to life. Like if I've been in a position where I was able to inspire someone either to do something or to just like be inspired and be enlightened, it's a good reminder of like I should do stuff. I should put myself out there, because even if I'm not doing it for myself, like I know it could benefit someone else. And so I like that. And if you don't do anything that scares you, then what are you doing? like,
Exactly. What's the fun in
what are you
that,
doing?
right?
Yeah. And it's not like
You know what I mean?
we're not even asking you to take like 100% leap into something. You're asking you to like quit your job
Exactly.
next day and then figure out what to do with your life from there, and try to figure out where your next paycheck's coming from. Even just taking a little step out of your comfort zone can go a long way.
Exactly. You know, like a kind of, oh, let me share a story, I guess. I do have a
Yeah.
story. I'm sorry.
Good.
But yeah, like I want to say a few years ago, back in Denver, one of my very good guy friends out there was just like, hey, he's a very, like, I thought I was outdoorsy. Like I snowboarded, I hiked, hiked 14ers and stuff like that. But he's like the ultimate mountain dude. And he goes, hey, you want to go try ice climbing? And I was like, heck no. I don't know if I can say hell, but I'm like, no, I don't want to. That's scary. And she's like, no, I swear, you'll be in a harness. You'll be able to do this. We'll have a guide and everything. Let's do it. So I was just like, F it, let's do it, whatever. So we drove 6 hours, did this like a whole ice climbing thingy. And oh my God, just looking up that, just climbing, like what we did is we pulled over on the side of the road and I go, where's the trail at? And he goes, oh no, you pretty much like belayed down the highway. And it was probably like 100 feet down. And I'm not kidding. You look down and it's like flat. And I'm like, what the heck? And he's like, oh yeah, there's ropes over there. So I'm like shaking coming down. And then I go, oh, this is it. This is cool. So there's frozen stuff. There's mountains all around me. There's like a frozen river that looked like muddy, a muddy
Oh,
mess.
hell no.
And I'm like, doo-doo-doo, and I'll send you photos of it. It was so scary, but it was so cool too, you know? And then we get up to this frozen waterfall, and I go, we're supposed to climb this thing? And it goes, yeah, here. Our guide like ended up coming up, and then he threw the rope down and he's like, start climbing. And I'm like,
Oh my
oh my
gosh.
God. And then like I want to say like the first 15 feet, I was, it wasn't totally steep, but it was kind of steep. There was like a small incline on it, but I would slide down. And then my friend was like, you have to use your leg, because, your first initial thought process would be like, I'm going to use my arms to climb, because, you're going straight up, but you have to use your legs and bend it over, and you have to tilt it down in order for you to climb up. So I was reaching like 1.5 to 2 feet up, and my arms were getting tired. So once he told me like a little bit of, like advice on how to do it, I was actually climbing. So you honestly take baby steps with, because you wear crampons, so you wear boots. And then you have the clamp part of it that's kind of like big wires on it and stuff. So you kind of dig with your left, and then you hike up maybe like 6 inches, use your arm, and then you do the same thing but with your left until you actually get up. So that was like that was probably one of the scariest thing I've ever done physically, but it was also mental, because I'm like, oh my God, this is like straight down. So the following year I ended up doing it on I think it was like my 27th birthday or something like that.
Wow.
So I ended up doing it again, and it was a lot steeper. And this one wasn't like, there was like holes and stuff, but it wasn't guided or anything. And I was doing it by myself. So which was scary at the same time, so awesome, you know what I mean? So rewarding. So, and I was so glad I did it. It was scary, but I'm glad I did it. And the views were amazing, and it made for awesome pictures too. So that
That's
was before like
awesome.
Instagram was big. So that's how I'm pretty old, or I'm older. I'm in the older part of our generation, you know what I mean? So
I know. I have a friend who like traveled the world really before Instagram became a thing, and then now she kind of like makes fun of millennials. She's like, you guys don't know anything about travel. Like, had Instagram been popular back then, I would have had a lot more followers.
oh yeah,
So
Right.
all the pictures I'd be posting and
If
everything.
only.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. I think that's like a very awesome visual story to
yeah.
explain like how to try anything that scares you.
Just wanted to say, Kathy, that it seems like, just based on what you've shared with us today, that you really embody the life lesson that you're giving us, to do things that scare you. And I just admire that it doesn't seem like you get too in your own head about making big decisions. In the example you just gave, in starting your food truck, it seems like you remain pretty optimistic all the time, and I want to commend you for that, because that has clearly been really rewarding for you in maybe some unpredictable ways, but it's really paid off for you to just trust your gut and to go with it, and it's very inspiring. So thank you for sharing.
Well, thanks so much. It's honestly I got teary-eyed. I appreciate that. Thank you. It's been a lot of hard work. You have no idea all this, the back stuff that I do. It's like the personal turmoil that goes in your head, like, oh my God, can I really do this or whatnot? And it's very empowering, and it's just been awesome. So thank you so much for saying that. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of Nani and hope that I make you cry.
No, stop.
It's not a good show unless someone cries. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, damn it.
Just like what Nani said, I admire your spirit and your enthusiasm and just your overall attitude on all of this. It's not easy first of all, you got fired. That's a tough, traumatic thing to go through. I was fired 4 times in my young 20s. Every time I got fired, it was hard, and it just felt like it got harder. And then you turn that around to an opportunity, and you really had to decide, like, okay, I'm going to do a restaurant, I'm going to do a food truck. And then you moved and you did. I do believe that the reason why you're so cheery and optimistic is because of everything that you went through. And I feel like you're a very empathetic person that appreciates like hard work and appreciates when people do enjoy, the food, the lumpia that you make and everything. So I just want to commend you as well for all the hard work you've done. And you're just a wonderful example for anyone who has migrated here and made something of herself, even despite losing a job and everything. So good work, Kathy.
Oh, thanks so much. I really, really appreciate it. Oh, I'm getting teary again.
Yes, that was my goal. Yeah. And if ever you need to pick me up, just listen to this episode again.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we're grateful that you are receiving it. I know that some people are very quick to dismiss compliments, and I really feel like you're accepting it. So I'm glad. Yeah. Thank you for receiving our compliments.
No, thank you. I hope the 3 of us can inspire other people to do other stuff. You know what I mean? And like, if they're scared of something, just do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I feel like we had such an incredible conversation with you today, Kathy. Before we wrap up, do you have any closing thoughts for our listeners?
Let's reiterate it. Like, if you're scared to do something, hey, give me a shout on DM on Instagram. And like, if I can help out in anything, just do it. If it scares you, just do it. Just say yes.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to do it, we're in 2019 now. You can Google anything. You can YouTube anything. You can, pretty much fake it till you make it type. Don't be scared, because life's too short. I mean, like I said, it sounds so cliche, but just go for it.
Yeah, but I think people need to hear it, even if it is cliche, because sometimes it's very easy for people to dismiss like really corny stuff or cliches, but sometimes you need to hear it at the right time. And
exactly.
Hopefully for anyone that's listening to this who is facing maybe like a situation that's scary for them, that this show has inspired you to take a chance, even if it's like a baby step.
Exactly. Like I said, you're going to regret it. Like, one of my biggest regrets in life, I don't know if I could talk about this stuff, but I was at the NRA show last year in Chicago, and it's the National Restaurant Association, not like the gun NRA. But
okay.
So I was like watching Chef Morimoto. I don't know if you guys know him. He's like an Iron Chef on Food Network, or I think it's on Food Network. But anyway, Iron Chef Morimoto. And I was telling my husband, I was like, man, I have a question for him. But it was after the fact that they were doing like the question answer part of the show. So he was on stage and there was someone with a mic going around like, hey, does anyone have any questions or something? And I really, really wanted to ask him something, but I was so scared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it haunts me because I'm like, that could have been my big moment talking to Chef Morimoto, and I didn't ask my question. I regret it so much. So don't be like me if you're whatever. There's like, I think there was like, I don't know, 150 people there like watching him. And all these people were like asking, I really think my question was like awesome. And I just didn't do it for some reason. And now I regret it. So, and I still talk about it. I'm like, dang it, I should have asked him. So,
oh man,
don't regret it.
that reminds me, I recently saw Pat Flynn, who's like this big internet guru guy. And I was at this conference and he was like right about to jump on stage, and I saw people like running at him to take pictures with him. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I totally like chickened out. And that was definitely like one of my regrets. I was like, oh man, like I should have just like ran in there and took a picture with him. And now I don't get to see him in person like ever again, unless like I try to seek him out. But I totally know what you mean. That's definitely a recent regret of mine.
Exactly. And you just be like, dang. I mean, what's the worst? And I tell my husband this, and my friends even this too, like, hey, what's the worst they can say is no, just do it. You know what I mean? And I didn't do it. And my question was like, him as a Japanese of descent and a chef, do you feel like you have to Americanize your dishes? And I was going to say, like, me as a Filipino descent, now I'm a chef here in America, sometimes I feel like I need to Americanize some stuff. Like my perfect example, like in Denver, make it gluten-free or make it vegetarian just to cater to Americans. You know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like that was a really great question. And now it's like, now I'll never have that chance again with him. You know what I mean? And he's like this great Iron Chef, and now I won't ever get that chance. And it's like such a big regret of mine. So now I'm like, ugh. Man.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I feel like I feel like I don't want to end on like a sad note.
Oh no, it's so great.
Yeah.
But just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Just do it. If you're scared, just do it, because what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, that's true. It's kind of like my husband's philosophy. He's always about ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And it amazes me how far he can get with things before he gets in trouble. Like, no joke, just a couple of days ago, like our water got shut off because we didn't realize that there was this extra bill. We didn't know there was an extra bill that we had to pay for. And we were like behind on it for 6 months apparently. But like we didn't know. And it was like, okay, well, let's just fix it. 24 hours later, it was already fixed. But I guess it's kind of like, oh, whoops, that happened. All right, well,
exactly.
There you go. And I mean, that's like, I feel like I could have a better example than that. But yeah, there's definitely been a lot of situations where like normally I would call ahead of time and see if I'm allowed to do that. But then my husband would just walk right in, and then they'll just deal with him anyway, because it's like, oh, you're already here. So
exactly.
yeah. So just do it. Ask for forgiveness rather than permission, and just do anything try anything that scares you. So
Indeed.
Awesome.
I like that. Ask for forgiveness versus permission.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start using that.
You could almost always plead ignorance as well. You could always say, oh, I didn't know. Like we live next to a dog beach, and then we were told by the locals that so during the summer, your dog isn't allowed to be on the beach during certain hours because it's a lot of people. But we were told that if you were ever on the beach during the day, to just tell the police if they pull you over with your dog, I guess. You would just say, oh, but first they would ask you, like, are you a local? You just say no. And then they'll usually like let you go. And so like, I mean, not that we ever like broke the rule like during the summertime, but could have easily just brought our dog onto the beach during the summertime and then just had asked for forgiveness because we didn't know about the rule. So anyway, I feel like I could have had another example for that, but that's the first thing that came to mind because I was like looking at the sunset right now. Anyway, I feel like I'm trying to think of one. Nani, do you have any examples of like doing it scared or not doing it scared? Actually, shout out to Marianne Clark, because that's the title of her episode, Do It Scared. I think she was episode 3. I'll have to come back to that and make sure that was the proper one. But All right. Well, ladies, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with both of you. Kathy, I want to thank you so much for your time. And Nani, I want to thank you for co-hosting as always. And of course, oh, last thing. Yeah. Kathy, for anyone that is interested in learning more about you, and if they happen to be near your area in Chicago, how can they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I guess my biggest platform right now is Instagram. So check me out on Instagram. My handle is at Taste of the Philippines, or just look for Kathy Vega Hardy, and I'll be there. And Kathy spelled with a K. So, and then all my info's in there. My website, my that's actually my cell phone number on there. So you guys can shoot me a text, DM, email. I'm available to everyone. So,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
That's very nice. That's very nice of you to provide your number like that.
Exactly. Well, the business started in Denver. I didn't know how it was going to be. So I'm like, I'll just do my cell phone. I don't know how big this is going to get. And then I'm kind of like kicking myself like, man, I wish I had a different line. But now it's like everyone has this number. I'm kind of scared to change it.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm going to have to and when I open a restaurant. So I have to have some kind of landline or something. So,
yeah.
But I'll definitely have this forever. So,
yeah, definitely. Awesome. Well, there you have it, listeners. If you did not catch that, don't worry. You know how generous I am. I always include it in the show notes. So with that said, thank you, everyone. It's been such a pleasure. And we look forward to speaking with you next time. See you at the next episode.
Bye.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks for listening.